nation.
Yeah.
So, I got my fingers crossed for you. Thanks to New York City Mayor Zoran.
Good.
Ramadan. Yes, I didn't get the last name, but nobody heard
One
it.
by one.
One by one. We will be right back.
Hey everyone, I have a humble request from the bottom of my heart. If you believe in independent journalism, please consider joining our membership for just $9 a month. We are not backed by corporate money, we don't have powerful funders behind us, and we are trying to do the kind of work mainstream media often refuses to do. Our goal is to reach at least 1,000 members who can stand with us and help us keep exposing corruption, asking tough questions, and fighting for the truth. If you can afford it, please join our membership today. Your support can help us make this country better for all of us. Just $9 a month may not feel like a lot to many people, but for independent journalism, it can make a huge difference. It helps us continue our work without fear, without pressure, and without depending on corporate funding. So once again, if you believe in what we do, please join our membership. We need people like you to stand with us. We need at least 1,000 supporters who truly care about truth, accountability, and the future of this country. If you can, please become a member today and help us continue this fight. And even if you cannot join right now, you can still support us by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing our work with others. Every like, every comment, every subscription, and every membership helps us move one step closer to our goal.
Whoopi Goldberg has spent years trading personal insults with Donald Trump on The View, the "you hired me 4 times" line, the "that well is dry" rebuttal, the reflecting pool fiasco. But over the first 7 months of 2026, her material shifted into something considerably more pointed than a celebrity feud. As the Iran war dragged into its 2nd, 3rd, and 4th month, Goldberg stopped trading barbs about Truth Social posts and started making a sustained, increasingly urgent argument about the war itself, who was actually fighting it, who was making the decisions, and what it said about the country that a sitting president kept escalating a conflict, while in her telling, nobody seemed to be steering the ship back home. It started plainly enough. Discussing the deepening Iran conflict on March 9, 2026, Goldberg didn't reach for a joke. She reached for a blunt assessment. Basically, we are sending people in to lose their lives. She invoked the most obvious historical parallel available to her, adding, "We knew we shouldn't have gone into Afghanistan," and pointed out that the people making the decision to escalate weren't the ones whose children would be the ones deployed. That comment set the tone for months of increasingly direct commentary that would eventually culminate in Goldberg standing on her own show and telling viewers, flatly, that the country needed to vote differently in the midterms because of it. That shift is worth flagging clearly before going any further. There's no single, dramatic, on-air confrontation between Goldberg and Trump. No live television standoff where the two of them appeared together and traded blows in real time. What's real, and what this piece is built around, is something more durable than a single viral clip. A 5-month arc of on-air commentary.
Hey everyone, I have a humble request from the bottom of my heart. If you believe in independent journalism, please consider joining our membership for just $9 a month. We are not backed by corporate money, we don't have powerful funders behind us, and we are trying to do the kind of work mainstream media often refuses to do. Our goal is to reach at least 1,000 members who can stand with us and help us keep exposing corruption, asking tough questions, and fighting for the truth. If you can afford it, please join our membership today. Your support can help us make this country better for all of us. Just $9 a month may not feel like a lot to many people, but for independent journalism, it can make a huge difference. It helps us continue our work without fear, without pressure, and without depending on corporate funding. So once again, if you believe in what we do, please join our membership. We need people like you to stand with us. We need at least 1,000 supporters who truly care about truth, accountability, and the future of this country. If you can, please become a member today and help us continue this fight. And even if you cannot join right now, you can still support us by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing our work with others. Every like, every comment, every subscription, and every membership helps us move one step closer to our goal.
Please welcome back the next president of the United States.
Summit's layout isn't too different from what you're used to. What's unique about Summit is this new door mechanism we've introduced. The door has 125 HP. Once it's closed for the rest of the round.
Even with the door down, it doesn't mean the round's done yet. Certain agents allow for utility through the little window.
Again, another reason why the door seems simple at first, but it might have more layers to it than you think. Oh, and if you time it just right, the doors are lethal.
I was raised by the wolves, ain't to they fool. Run through the night, playing with your life. Go and get
When your dog eats your lunch.
what the
Get back to school groceries today for $5 or less.
And then Trump was asked a question about all of his stock trades, enriching himself to billions of dollars, giving himself tax immunity. And Trump's like, I don't know any of that. My little boys handle that. My little kids. You know how he treats Eric and Don Jr. like they're some little children running around? These are grown adults who are clearly involved, in my opinion, in these various machinations and schemes with Donald Trump. They're good kids. They're good kids. If Donald Trump says they're good kids, we know that these are the worst, most vile, sick things. And they carry the sickest, most disgusting last name imaginable that will go down in history to be the most despicable, stained word imaginable. Trump. Here, play this clip.
But they want to do a bill. And in the bill, they want me to be different than everybody else on the.
So you're against that, it would sound like.
Well, I don't mind putting it in a blind trust. I don't run my stuff anyway. I let my kids run it. And I never talk to them about things. If they want to go into, they're not involved in government. I don't talk to them about government. I don't talk to them about much other than to say, I love you kids. They're good kids. But we don't want to see China take over crypto. I don't want to see China win with AI.
Now, I found this notable as well. This didn't get a lot of attention.
Delivered episode by episode as the war itself developed. That tracks how one of the administration's most persistent daytime critics moved from personal insult to sustained policy argument. That arc is worth walking through in full, because it says something about how this war has actually been covered and discussed in American living rooms over the course of an entire spring and summer, not just in any single moment, right now in U.S. politics. Before we get into Goldberg's Iran commentary, here is where the country actually stands today. The conflict that began back in February continues to move cautiously towards some kind of resolution. On August 7th, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan signed what's being called the Mecca Joint Defense Pact, a mutual defense agreement stating that any armed attack against any one of the three states shall be regarded as an attack against them all, a significant regional realignment unfolding directly alongside the ongoing Hormuz standoff. On the negotiating track itself, an Iranian official said a framework agreement had been reached with Oman over reopening the Strait of Hormuz, with a final decision to be made at higher levels still pending, according to Iranian state media. Trump himself has said the war can't go much longer, though he also said on August 6th that the United States had massive amounts of munitions after reports surfaced questioning the state of American stockpiles. That is worth holding on to as you read through what Goldberg has been saying since March, because her commentary wasn't really about any single news cycle. It was a running argument, month after month, that a war now stretching past its sixth month deserved sustained scrutiny. Rather than the periodic, whiplash-inducing news cycle, it's mostly received optimistic one week, ominous the next, with the underlying human cost rarely staying in the headlines for more than a day or two at a time.
Top defense officials, top generals, top admirals have gone to every media outlet to call out Trump, to call out Hegseth, to raise the alarms that the United States has depleted all of its munitions. It has depleted critical military equipment, that the United States is abandoning its military bases in the Middle East, that the United States military is unable to even protect the homeland right now. The United States, if there were to be an escalation of any war, not just in Iran, but anywhere in the world. And these top military generals, admirals, and defense officials are also making it clear that Trump regime officials who work with Hegseth, people like this guy, Elbridge Colby, who called himself a China hawk. He's the number 2 at the Defense Department. He and Hegseth are like locked at the hip. This guy, Colby, who was saying how he's going to go after China and be strong when the Trump regime started, he's been begging Xi Jinping to visit China. And Xi Jinping's like, we don't want to see you, you pathetic, weak weasel. Stay the hell out of China. And Elbridge Colby's like, please, Xi, can I be to China? And Xi Jinping's like, no, we don't want to see you here. We remember when you threatened us. And now that you don't have weapons, you want to suck up to us. So the military...
For me, I have a lot of faith in the American people. And I don't know very many men who want to be talked to the way that this man has been talking to men in his audience. I don't know any women, and I know his grandchild was up on the thing, and they're trying to humanize him and change your idea about who this guy is. Don't fall for that.
Trump, you're talking about. Yeah. Talking about Trump.
He then goes on to say that Iran respects us more than ever right now. They call us, they beg us, they say, please, sir, please make a deal. And again, we know this is all false. We know that Iran said that if Donald Trump escalated, they were going to destroy all of the countries in the Middle East. Then the Middle East countries told Donald Trump, you cannot do this. We also ran out of Patriot interceptors, THAAD interceptors, Navy destroyers, and our military said, you ran out of weapons, you idiot. And the military generals and admirals said, we don't have the resources. And Iran knows we don't have the resources right now. And here's what Donald Trump said, oh, Iran, they called, they begged us. Here, play this clip.
Right.
When someone you love served, military life doesn't end the day they take off the uniform. It's your family's story too. It's helpful to know where to find information, resources, and support designed for veterans and the people who care about them. When one person served, no one makes the journey alone.
190,000 players online, Where Winds Meet has arrived on Steam, earning praise from players around the world. A free-to-play open-world MMORPG is opening a new era of Wuxia adventure. Create your character, shape your destiny, fight alongside your friends, and challenge powerful enemies, or set out alone, exploring vast landscapes and uncovering secrets hidden across the world.
Right? That's the old-fashioned way. To the victor belong the spoils, right? And we're doing the same thing, by the way, in the lovely Islamic Republic of Iran. We're knocking the hell out of it. Knocking the hell out of it. I'd rather make a deal because I don't want to kill people. I do not want to kill people. But at some point we were set for the biggest attack of any attack, and we've hit them very hard for the last few months. But we were all set for the biggest attack since World War II. And they called me and they said, please don't do it. Let's talk. And then they said, we never said that. You know what? The fake news knows they did say that, but we are talking. Let's see what happens. But they respect us. They respect us. It's been 47 years, but really it's been 50 years because they've been saying 47 for 3 years. It's been 50 years and no other president has done what you should have.
Consider the sheer duration involved. The conflict began in February. By the time of Goldberg's March comment, it was barely a month old. By her July appeal to voters, it had run for the better part of half a year, through multiple rounds of escalation, canceled strikes, disputed negotiations, a Houthi blockade in the Red Sea, and now a fresh multinational defense pact signed in Mecca. Very few ongoing news stories sustain that kind of continuous, evolving coverage on a daily entertainment program for 5 consecutive months without becoming background noise. The audience tunes out. That Goldberg kept returning to it, with escalating urgency rather than fading interest, is itself a data point about how unusually persistent this particular story has been, compared to the ordinary news cycle's typical attention span. Timeline. Goldberg's March 9th comment, "We are sending people in to lose their lives," came during a discussion of the administration's Iran strategy, at a point when the conflict was still relatively young. Her Afghanistan comparison wasn't an offhand reference. It was a specific, testable historical argument. American military engagements that begin with confident, limited-scope justifications have a documented tendency to expand well past their original mandate, at a real and ongoing cost in American lives. And Goldberg was arguing the Iran conflict was already showing the early signs of that same pattern. She also raised a point about who actually bears the cost of that kind of escalation, noting that the people with the authority to order an expanded military commitment are rarely the people whose own children end up wearing the uniform, a class-based observation about military service that predates this particular conflict by generations.
Military generals and admirals are leaking all of this. How bad are these leaks? Well, let's just take a look right here. NBC News cites 4 sources, top sources within the military who are familiar with the matter on how angry Donald Trump is, how humiliated he feels, that he called one of the other top officials at the Department of Defense, this guy named Feinberg, and there was this emergency crisis Pentagon meeting where Feinberg was being blamed by Hegseth. But the people in this article say that Feinberg actually was trying to deal with the ballistics and the interceptors and all of the issues that our military was dealing with for a long time, and that Hegseth had always been trying to undermine Feinberg, and then Hegseth tried to throw Feinberg under the bus, but it seems the top generals, admirals, and defense officials have Feinberg's back. But there were 4 sources in the NBC story talking about that Donald Trump is isolated, alone, humiliated, and panicked right now. Then you have the Reuters story citing 3 people familiar with the data, specifying that virtually all of the ATACMS and precision strike missiles, those ATACMS, those HIMARS, those offensive weapons that were used heavily in the catastrophic war in Iran, that we've depleted virtually all of those. No ATACMS, no THAAD interceptors, no Patriot PAC-3 interceptors, no SM-2, SM-3, SM-6 anti-ballistics on Navy destroyers. They're citing our NATO command as recognizing the U.S. is out of weapons, and CENTCOM officials saying that the U.S. Has run out of weapons.
They say I'm complicit. I'm the same like him. I support him. I don't say enough. I don't do enough.
No.
Where I am, I'm working like my ass off.
I know.
Christmas stuff that, who gives a about Christmas stuff and decoration, but I need to do it, right?
Yeah, but
correct?
100%. You have no choice.
And then I do it, and I say that I'm working on Christmas, planning for the Christmas. And they said, "Oh, what about the children that they were separated?" Give me a break. Where they were saying anything when Obama did that?
I know.
I cannot go. I was trying to get the kid reunited with the mom. I didn't have a chance. It needs to go through the process and through the law.
But here's my thing. Hear what you just said. But instead of that, if you're messaging, you were so loved.
They would not do the story. We put it out. They would not do the story.
I'm telling you.
You would not believe it. They would not do the story because they would not do the story because they they are against us because they're liberal media. Yeah, if I go to Fox, they will do the story. I don't want to go to Fox.
Vistaprint is where your big ideas become bold apparel, so you can wear and share your brand in custom t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and more. Just think it, click it, and print it with Vistaprint. Print your possible with 20% off your first order at Vistaprint.com.
If you want to make someone special, feel truly special, then make Dawat. And they'll know to serve them you've gone the extra mile.
But that she was applying directly to the specific decisions being made in real time. That specific argument that decision makers and their families are insulated from the consequences of the decisions they make is one of the oldest and most durable critiques of how democracies wage war, showing up in political commentary going back generations across administrations of both parties. Goldberg wasn't inventing a new argument in March. She was applying a familiar, long-standing critique to a specific, live situation at a moment when the war was still young enough that its eventual scale and duration remained genuinely uncertain. Whether that particular critique fully applies to this specific conflict is a separate question from whether it's a legitimate lens to apply at all, and it's one that has been raised in various forms. About nearly every sustained American military engagement of the past several decades. By April 20th, with the war still grinding on, Goldberg's commentary sharpened considerably, prompted by a Wall Street Journal report suggesting Trump was privately in a panic over the war and looking for a way out, alongside co-host Alyssa Farah Griffin's warning that Iran, as what she called the biggest state sponsor of terrorism, might seek retribution even if a peace deal were reached. Goldberg's response went further than a warning about retaliation. She connected the moment to a specific, real policy development. The Selective Service System's early April announcement of a proposed automatic registration process for draft-eligible citizens. They're planning on a draft, Goldberg said. They're planning on a draft, and you're bitching and moaning that there are women who are part of the Army, Navy. And you're getting rid of people and talking about who shouldn't be. What the hell are you people doing? That claim deserves careful handling.
CENTCOM sources told Reuters the U.S. has exhausted its ground-launching missiles. We've exhausted most of our Tomahawks. And 2 additional sources talked about the Patriot and THAADs are gone. Bye-bye. Virtually all THAADs and Patriot interceptors are gone. So Iran can use its ballistic missiles at will, with impunity, which is fascinating as well because Russia is able to use its ballistics with impunity against Ukraine right now. And the U.S. clearly, and not that Trump wants to help Zelensky because Trump's a Putin bootlicker, but even if we want to we don't have the interceptors to stop the ballistics, even in U.S. bases. That's why additional sources leaking to Reuters, NBC, and CBS that the U.S. has essentially abandoned all of its military bases in the region as well. CBS News, citing 2 sources with direct knowledge, states that the U.S. has again used virtually all of its global stockpile of long-range precision missiles, and that our inventories are gone. Now, it should also be noted that at this funeral, Netanyahu was there. And while Netanyahu was there, before heading to the funeral, and this hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but Netanyahu has been telling Israeli media the following. He said, when asked about, people are wondering, is Lindsey Graham, did he die of this aortic condition, which is what the Graham family says. What do you think, Netanyahu? And Netanyahu goes, quote, "The Americans claim they tested it was a natural killer. They claim they tested it and it was natural." It's kind of an odd answer for Netanyahu to be giving. It was natural. It was natural. It was natural is what they said. And then finally, we know about just the We talked about this during Trump's criminal trials, and it's a real thing. Just the foul, putrid odors that emanate from Donald Trump. You can see the guy behind Donald Trump as Trump was falling asleep. The guy behind Trump just looked absolutely disgusted at the funeral. Here, I'll show it to you. Let's play it.
Best on. There's a lot of times it's easy. It's easier to bow out. It's easier just to go a different way, the path of least resistance.
Because it blends something real with something considerably more speculative. The underlying Selective Service Registration proposal was genuine, real policy under discussion that spring an administrative change to how draft-eligible citizens are registered, not itself a declaration of an active draft. Goldberg's leap from that registration proposal to they're planning on a draft for the Iran war specifically was her own extrapolation, not a confirmed administration policy. And no co-host on the segment pushed back or asked her to clarify the distinction between an administrative registration process and an actual activated draft. That gap matters. The Selective Service story was real and worth discussing on its own terms. Whether it specifically previewed a draft tied to the Iran conflict is a claim Goldberg asserted rather than one that had at that point been confirmed by any administration official or independent reporting. It's worth walking through exactly why that distinction matters so much in practice, rather than treating it as a minor technicality. An automatic registration process changes how the government keeps track of who is theoretically eligible for a draft. Should one ever be authorized by Congress? A bureaucratic modernization that on its own says nothing about whether any administration actually intends to seek that authorization. Treating a registration update as equivalent to an active plan to send drafted civilians into a specific ongoing war collapses two very different categories of government action into one considerably more alarming claim. That collapse is exactly the kind of imprecision that gives critics a legitimate opening, separate entirely from whatever one thinks about the war itself or the administration's broader conduct of it.
CNN citing multiple senior U.S. officials about how Trump privately panicking, complaining, beside himself that the U.S. has the weakest position possible in any negotiations with Iran, that the U.S. essentially has to accept whatever Iran says because the U.S. doesn't have any defense capabilities and we've diminished our offensive capabilities, and that China and Russia and North Korea see this and they see a massive opportunity as well. And our Arab nation former allies are terrified. 6 sources familiar with the Camp David meeting describe the munitions topic being front and center. And then in the CNN article, they said that Trump should have been aware of this for many months. Was he not listening to Hegseth? Was Hegseth a lot? What was going on there? Because they said Feinberg and others were telling Trump. So was Hegseth trying to tell Donald just what Donald wanted to hear? How the hell do you deplete 80 to 90% of your frickin' THAADs? The Atlantic citing multiple, every one of, just think about it. The top military officials were like, time to leak. And then they all went out. Remember, I was saying this was happening the day before. They are overwhelming Donald Trump with shame, a tsunami of shame and embarrassment and humiliation at Donald Trump. And rightfully so. He did with our United States military what he did with his casinos. He bankrupted. Dude, you had $1 trillion in the budget last year. He then attacks former President Obama and says that we inherited a mess from Obama. Let's play it.
Our military is the greatest in the world, the strongest. We inherited a terrible mess. I inherited a mess from Obama, and I inherited, frankly, I rebuilt the military. But a lot of our military was badly jeopardized by Sleepy Joe Biden.
He then goes on to say that the greatest threat is communism and that he would become the greatest communist in history. By the way, did you see my interview with Bernie Sanders where he addressed that? Let's play this clip.
These people are dangerous, and frankly, they're lunatics. They're crazy, and we can't let them get into office. Communism is the greatest threat to our country in its history, including even World War I World War II, Pearl Harbor, 9/11. I think it's the greatest threat. I could be the greatest communist in history. I tell everybody here, would you like a free house? We'll take one from your neighbor. Would you like free rent? We'll take it from whoever. We'll take your building away from the landlord that makes 2%.
Donald Trump then says that nobody knows that the word dumb doesn't have a B in it, and you take Democrats and you take the E and the duh. Here, play this clip.
Took office, we inherited a total catastrophe. Biden and the radical left, Democrats, I call them Democrats because their policies are so dumb. You exchange the E with a U, and nobody knows that dumb doesn't have a B. Democrats.
The same Vantage plan that I use for my research. So just go click the link in the description or go to ground.news/MTN or scan the QR code up here. It's one of the biggest discounts they've ever offered. If you want to support this channel and get a clearer understanding of the world, try out Ground News. Go to ground.news/MTN or you can hit that QR code. Now, in that same interview with Punchbowl, Donald Trump said, Iran is begging to make a deal. They're begging to make it. But I thought you won, Donald. Haven't you been posting that you won? Here, play this clip.
Guys like that get in, they'll destroy this country.
You said yesterday, you just talked about Nevada. You said yesterday gas prices, correct me if I'm wrong, they might go up again a little bit. You said.
No, that's only if I have to do another hit.
Okay, so I mean.
They'll only go down, or if we make a deal, they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal. Look, it's obvious. They don't want to be hit. Okay, they want to make a deal. So we'll see.
Because you're seeing.
And now Treasury Secretary Bessent is out there saying, you know what? We don't even need the Strait of Hormuz anymore. He says, in just a few years, the Strait of Hormuz will just be another body of water. And I would say that more than 50 or 70% of the energy is now going through underground pipelines. So this is how they surrender. This is how they change the goalposts, right? So now the Strait of Hormuz doesn't even matter.
A real documented registration policy change got tangled up with a considerably more speculative claim about drafting people specifically for Iran. And the two got delivered to a national audience as though they were the same story. None of that means Goldberg's broader concern about escalation and troop deployment was illegitimate 5 months into an active war with no clear resolution in sight. Questions about whether the conflict might eventually require expanded troop numbers are not unreasonable ones to raise. But there's a meaningful difference between raising that question as an open concern about where the war might be heading and stating flatly, as established fact, that a draft was already being planned. The former is legitimate journalistic and civic skepticism. The latter requires actual confirming evidence that, as of that broadcast, simply wasn't part of the public record. 3 weeks later, on May 13th, Goldberg widened the lens again, moving from the war specifically to a broader argument about the state of American governance during it, discussing concerns about vacancies and disarray across federal agencies, including, she noted, nobody, apparently, in charge of the CDC in the event of a public health emergency. Goldberg said plainly, "We have been deballed as a nation, I feel." When a co-host asked if she meant something closer to castrated, she didn't back away from the framing. "It's the same thing," she said, adding, "The idea that no one is in charge freaks me out," and calling the overall situation deeply unserious, against a backdrop of what she described as declining international confidence in American leadership. That comment is worth separating from the war commentary specifically, because it was making a different, broader argument. Not simply that the Iran war was being mismanaged, but that the pattern of mismanagement extended across multiple federal agencies simultaneously, with the war serving as the most visible example of a wider problem rather than an isolated one. Whether or not one agrees with Goldberg's characterization of specific agency vacancies, the underlying question she was raising, whether the ordinary machinery of federal government was functioning normally during an active foreign war, is a legitimate one, separate from any partisan framing of the war itself. The specific choice of the word deballed, and Goldberg's decision to stand by it, rather than soften it when a co-host offered a more clinical alternative, is itself worth a moment of attention. Daytime talk shows operate under real content and language constraints. most late night or streaming programs don't face, given their broadcast timing and audience. A host reaching for that specific word on that specific platform and then explicitly declining the opportunity to substitute a tamer synonym signals a level of genuine frustration that goes beyond ordinary political commentary.
And you squandered it. What was he spending it on? Well, we've got more military and admiral leaks on that as well. The Trump-class Navy destroyers is what he's been focused on. Not Navy, I shouldn't say Navy destroyers. Battleships. Be better if they were Navy destroyers. Trump liked the way the post-World War I, right before World War II battleship looks like. He said he likes the aesthetic. He hates stealth. Not a big fan of drones, not a big fan of stealth. So he's pouring in hundreds of billions of our taxpayer dollars to build nuclear-powered Trump class, that's what they're calling it, battleships that resemble the period of time in history between World War I and World War II, instead of focusing on unmanned submersives, FPV drones, the American version of the Shahed style drone, drone interceptors. Imagine if you spent your money on that, and now they want freaking $1.5 trillion. You want me to give everybody free healthcare, which we should all have? Let me show you how you do it. Take that $1.5 trillion military budget, turn it into $300 billion. We'd still have by far the biggest military budget in the world. Spend the $300 billion on drones, unmanned submersives, the way, I don't know, modern warfare is fought. Then let's tax the rich 1% to 3% more. Maybe it should be more than that. And then between the money you get there and the money you get from saving an additional $1 trillion, I just gave everybody free healthcare, affordable housing, pretty freaky. Let's not overcomplicate this, folks. Sorry, I digress. He then finishes up by saying Abdul El-Sayed is he's full of shit. That's what Trump says. He's full of shit. Let's play it.
Filth, crime, death, destruction, embarrassment. You lose your home, you lose your apartment, and that's where the communists will take us 100%. When I watch Abdul, he's full of shit.
And then Trump says he wants to fire Supreme Court justices.
Who all stick together. You know, the Republican judges or justices don't stick together. They don't stick together. But these three people that they have, they're like glue. They never veer. And in many ways, I respect that. I must tell you, they're horrible for our country. It's too bad they're on. A couple of them just don't belong. I'd like to fire them. I'd fire them if I could. I'm just responding for the meeting. I'm just responding to them. They'll say, Trump wants to fire the judges. That'll be the... No, I'm just responding. I'm just responding. The man said, fire them, sir, fire them.
Oh, and then he attacks former President Biden one more time. There you have it.
It's run properly by us. And it's not me, it's us, because you're the people that built the country, believe me. In 4 long years of sleepy Joe Biden and the very corrupt, and it was the most corrupt administration, they got less than $1 trillion of new investment in our country. So think of this. 4 years, not 1 year.
Well, there you have it, everybody. That was his speech in Las Vegas. Pretty pathetic. Like the most pathetic thing ever, right? Right. Because Iran and Oman are about to make a deal where Iran controls the strait. Nah, it's just another waterway. We don't even need it. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Do you see how these con artists, these Bernie Madoff, these scammers act? Now we don't even need the Strait of Hormuz. It's just a body of water. We don't even need the Red Sea. It's just a body of water. We don't need any straits. The Strait of Gibraltar. We don't need any straits, okay? We may have needed straits in the prior administration, but now we're beyond straits because we figured we all have a plan and don't actually look at the data, which shows that jobs are being lost. Let's just say we're in a Goldilocks economy and things are just right. Watch what this vile thing says. Here, play this clip.
There's some who've speculated the strait will never go back to being the way it was before. What would you say?
I think they're saying that in a doomsday sort of way. I would say it in another way. The strait is never going back to the way it was because the Iranians have used or tried to use it as a choke point. What we are going to see over the next 2 years, the strait's going to become irrelevant it is going to become just another body of water. And I would say that more than 50 or 70% of the energy that moves through the strait now is going to go through underground pipelines.
This is what we've trained for, people. Omega incursion.
Where?
Everywhere.
Hold them to their grave!
It's about time.
Let's finish this.
New season, new space. Unlock major savings during the Living Spaces Labor Day event and level up your home aesthetic. Plus, get free shipping as soon as next day. Your dream home is closer than you think. Catch these massive Labor Day event savings only at Living Spaces.
Living Spaces.
Whether or not the metaphor itself holds up to scrutiny, the choice to use it and to defend it rather than retreat from it once challenged tells you something about how urgently Goldberg felt the underlying point needed to land with her audience. By mid-June, with the war still unresolved and midterm season approaching, Goldberg's commentary shifted from diagnosis to a direct call to action. On June 17th, discussing the need for what she called changing the regime, she made a point of framing her appeal in explicitly bipartisan terms. You showing up, you coming out. And this is not just at Democrats. There are Republicans out there who don't like what they see. We need y'all to come out too. She acknowledged concerns about election integrity directly rather than dismissing them, but insisted turnout still mattered regardless. It does matter that people vote, she said, urging both Democrats and Republicans who oppose the administration's direction to participate. That framing is worth noting specifically because it departs from the simpler partisan cheerleading that critics often accuse daytime talk hosts of engaging in. Goldberg wasn't arguing Democrats should turn out because Democrats are inherently right. She was making a considerably narrower argument that voters across the political spectrum who had concerns about the direction of the war and the state of federal governance had a shared interest in turning out, regardless of party registration. Whether or not that appeal proves persuasive to Republican viewers of a show generally understood to lean left, the argument itself was structured as a cross-partisan appeal rather than a purely tribal one. It's also worth noting the specific way Goldberg addressed election integrity concerns directly, rather than dismissing them outright, since that's a point where a less careful commentator might have simply waved away the concern as bad faith. Acknowledging the concern and then arguing turnout still mattered regardless is a meaningfully different rhetorical move than pretending the concern doesn't exist at all. It concedes the premise of the skeptic's worry while still making the case that participation remains the better strategy than withdrawal, a distinction that separates a genuine persuasive appeal from a simple dismissal of anyone who might disagree. The clearest, most direct version of that argument came 5 weeks later, on July 23rd, during a discussion about the 2028 Democratic primary field and whether the party should discourage more progressive candidates. Goldberg redirected the conversation back to the present moment with clear urgency. I beg you all, you may be right about the Dems, I don't know, but I'm telling you, we must readjust what's going on. The studio audience applauded. Her argument wasn't a defense of any particular Democratic candidate or ideological wing of the party. She explicitly acknowledged she didn't know whether critics of the party's direction were right.
The Atlantic, how the U.S. squandered its strategic advantage, idle threats and munition shortages box Trump in. The United States is running out of missiles after 5 months, not like 6 months, of war with Iran. Stockpiles of long-range weapons are so low. Current and former U.S. defense officials told us that they don't believe the U.S. has enough to combat a threat in Asia. The remaining supplies, depending on the munition, are as low as 20% of what the Pentagon Pentagon would like to have, frankly, would need to have in hand. And then the Atlantic writes this: the once shameless president is deeply embarrassed, citing multiple sources about how embarrassed he is. Is that the reason why he's wearing that rug on his head? The new rug, it appears. What's up with this new wig that he's been wearing? It looks like is he trying to copy what his mother looked like before she died? Is he that addled and Fred dementia ridden? Does he think he's Fred and that he's or does he think he's his mom? I'm sorry, I digress. This is what he looked like the day before, though. Now, Trump posting the following on his social media: the U.S. has massive amounts of munitions, and he puts munitions in quotes because we don't have massive amounts of munitions, especially of certain types. Additionally, large amounts are being manufactured and shipped to the U.S. as needed. Defense companies are building the largest number of plants and factories in our country's history. The leakers of these treasonous statements are being hunted down. Trump can't handle the leakers. That Trump will be hosting mining CEOs as the regime seeks minerals for defense supply chains. They're doing a mining CEO meeting right now. That's what they're doing, mining CEOs. While the American people are in a jobs recession, the mining CEOs are coming to town. And the regime media says that we're in a Goldilocks economy and things could not be any better right now. Let me show you this clip of Trump before I get into this article where he says the economy, he should get 150% mark, that the economy is not just 100%, it's 150% good. Here, let me just play this, and then I'll go into the mining CEOs. Here, play this clip.
Yeah. And it's because of me. Biden was against all this. I don't think Biden had any idea what it was. But our country right now is doing better than it's ever done. You know, when I see polls on the economy, I should have 150%, not 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have the greatest, this is the golden age of America. What's being built now in this country has never, ever been built. And we are literally in the golden age of America. And
her argument was narrower and more urgent. Whatever the correct long-term strategic debate about the party's future looked like, the more immediate problem, in her view, needed addressing first through the ballot box, before any of those longer-term questions could even be productively debated. Reactions. Reaction to Goldberg's Iran commentary split along predictable lines. But the specific content of each critique varied considerably depending on which comment was under discussion. The March in May remarks about lives being lost and the country being deballed drew criticism mostly on grounds of tone and language rather than substance, with critics arguing that a daytime talk show wasn't the appropriate venue for that kind of blunt, occasionally crude commentary about an ongoing military conflict. Defenders countered that the bluntness was precisely the point. Sanitized, careful language about an active war, they argued, tends to obscure the human stakes involved, rather than clarify them. And Goldberg's willingness to speak plainly about lives being lost cut through a news cycle that had by that point been treating the war somewhat abstractly for weeks. The April 20th draft comments drew a sharper, more substantive round of criticism, focused specifically on the gap between the real underlying selective service story and Goldberg's characterization of it as evidence of an active plan to draft civilians for the Iran war. Critics on the right seized on the moment as an example of imprecise, alarmist commentary allowed to stand unchallenged on a major national broadcast, noting accurately that no co-host asked her to clarify or substantiate the more specific claim. That criticism has real merit on its own terms. The distinction between the government is changing its draft registration process and the government is planning to draft civilians for this specific war is a meaningful one, and conflating the two without qualification risks overstating what the available reporting actually supported at the time. The May deballed comment drew its own separate reaction, focused less on accuracy than on register. Several commentators noted it was an unusually blunt turn of phrase for a broadly watched daytime program, regardless of one's view of the underlying substance about federal agency staffing and leadership vacancies. That reaction says as much about the format Goldberg works in as it does about the specific claim, since a considerably more clinical version of the same argument, concerns about vacancies across federal agencies during an active foreign conflict, would likely have drawn less attention had it been phrased more conventionally. The June and July comments, by contrast, drew comparatively less controversy over accuracy.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to somebody about what I was going through, not explain what it's like to be in the military and have PTSD.
So I got connected to this therapist who had just taken the Safeguard Veterans Train, which offers additional coping strategies for veterans just like me. I'm really grateful that there's a program like this. It's easy to find, it's focused on veterans and our mental health and well-being.
I love you.
Don't say it. Feed him. Here, eat more. I can feel myself changing. I've become my auntie.
You can't handle leakers. I was going to say, I'll leave it at that. You can't handle leakers. Let's talk about what the rest of the world is seeing. They know this is happening. So what did Saudi Arabia do? Just entered into a defense agreement with Turkey to expand its defense alliance with Pakistan. So you have new alliances forming. Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Turkey. This as the Houthis just struck again in northern Yemen, the area by the Saudi-backed government. And the Houthis are threatening to work with the Iraqi resistance and others to potentially strike Saudi Arabia hard. We can expect that happening at any moment right now. These strikes by the Houthis on the Saudi forces in Yemen killed at least 58 of the Saudi-backed defense forces there. The Houthis are not playing around right now. Even state regime media Fox is beside itself. Jesse Waters went on air and he was like, "We seem very close to doing a deal in the Strait of Hormuz." Oh, wait. Iran wants to charge the U.S. and Israel 7%. Oh, I guess that's not going to happen. Here, play this clip.
Fox News alert, we're closing in on a deal. Mideast negotiators have reportedly agreed to open up the strait with no tolls on one condition. State media says no U.S. or Israeli ships can sail through. So that's not happening.
You know what's notable, though, when I looked at this mining CEO article in Ground News, and it's being mostly covered on the right. And by the way, this is one of the reasons that I use Ground News. And it's a research tool that I use every morning when I prepare these videos. And they're probably the best tool I use to help me stay objective in my reporting. You see, Ground News is an app and a website that pulls in thousands of articles from around the world. It organizes them by story to show you how the left, center, and right are framing the story differently. It shows you if corporate conglomerates are behind the story, if independent media is behind the story. It lets you compare reporting on the same issue in one place from different sources so you can draw your own conclusions. Like in the article I just shared with you, I was surprised there's no one on the left covering that these mining CEOs are heading to the White House at the same time Trump has just made our economy as horrible as it's been with this horrific jobs recession taking place. I think that contrast deserves the right amount of attention. Ground News has this dedicated blind spot feed. It's a personal favorite of mine, which highlights stories being disproportionately covered on either side of the political aisle. Look, I believe in Ground News so much, and I use it so much, we're going to offer you 40% off. And then Besson says his foot is on the throat of the people in Iran, and they're really struggling right now, and everybody's scared of us. Play this clip.
We're never going to let them have a nuclear weapon. Right. We had Epic Fury, which was the kinetic portion. At Treasury, we did economic fury. What goes little publicized is, on the kinetic side, Air Force is wiped out, Navy is wiped out, a big portion of their missiles, more importantly, their missile production. On the economic side, we have them by the throat, and they've got 150, 180% food inflation, not able to pay the troops. So I think shortly, maybe even today, tomorrow, we are going to see an agreement, 30, 60-day ceasefire, and Strait will be open. Energy prices should come down.
They're really scared of us. Okay, no wonder Saudi Arabia needs to make a deal with Turkey right now. They're really scared of us. No wonder the Wall Street Journal just reported that U.S. intel finds that Putin could test NATO's resolve with a limited incursion, and now it's believed that Putin is not afraid to strike NATO as he sees utter weakness in the U.S. and that the U.S. has depleted its interceptors and its ATACMS and the HIMARS. Yeah, you think they're scared of us, Besant? Despite international sanctions, North Korea just generated an estimated $22 billion in foreign revenue between 2022 and 2025 through arms sales and military support to Russia, as Kim Jong-un does ballistic missile, cruise missile, and other tests and brags about their nuclear arsenal on a daily basis. But you don't hear a peep from our corporate news about that. You don't hear a peep from Trump about it because they're weak. But you'll hear about it here on the Midas Touch Network. That's what's going on right now.
Since neither one made a specific, falsifiable factual claim in the way the draft comment had. Urging voter turnout and expressing urgency about the direction of the country are, whatever one thinks of the underlying political argument, categorically different kinds of statements than an assertion about a specific, confirmed government policy, and the more muted reaction to those later comments, compared to the sharper pushback on the draft claim, reflects that distinction. There's also a useful pattern to notice across the full run of reactions. One that says something about how political commentary gets scrutinized differently depending on its form. The comments that drew the sharpest, most substantive pushback were the ones making a specific, checkable, factual claim, the draft comment above all. The comments that drew softer, more tone-focused criticism were the ones expressing an opinion, a value judgment, or a call to action, rather than asserting a specific fact about government policy. That's not a flaw unique to Goldberg or to this particular feud. It's simply how scrutiny tends to work for any public commentator on any platform across the political spectrum. Specific factual claims invite specific factual rebuttals. Broader value arguments and appeals to action invite broader disagreement about values, which is a messier, less resolvable kind of argument by its very nature. Commentators sympathetic to Goldberg's overall position have also pointed out a broader pattern worth naming. 5 months of sustained commentary produced exactly one claim, the draft assertion, that drew serious, substantive, factual pushback, while the rest of her commentary across that same stretch held up reasonably well against the available public record, even when delivered in blunt or crude language. That
Red flags are surfacing as the Trump regime is now claiming that Trump was subject to yet another assassination attempt, this time in California at Ranchos Palos Verdes at Donald Trump's golf course right over here in California. Donald Trump visited briefly on Tuesday, where he held a fundraiser before going to Las Vegas. Apparently, a suspect was arrested on Sunday who Donald Trump's FBI claims was staking out the area in order to do this plot against Donald Trump.
Tell, if you don't mind, about the conversation you had with then celebrity entrepreneur Donald Trump off air, as it pertained to banks and how that influenced your thinking?
I'm doing the show, quite frankly, on ESPN2, my own show, talk show from 2005 to 2007. I believe it was in 2006. He's the host of The Apprentice, has the intro music on, doo-doo, 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 doo-doo. I love that music, right? And so he comes out, and it was great, and he let me touch his hair to prove he wasn't wearing a toupee and stuff like that, and he did all of that, right? And, but we were in the green room, and he gave me some advice that I've never forgotten. He said, not just know your worth, but go for it all. Always pursue the most. And I said, explain, what do you mean? And he said, when you go to a bank and you borrow $3 million and you can't pay it back, you got a problem. He said, but when you go to a bank and you borrow $300 million and you can't pay it back, we've got a problem. He said, the moral of the story is, the more you convince someone to invest in you, the more they must work diligently to ensure your success. Don't come cheap. Make sure you convince folks to make that requisite investment in you, because they'll be committed to you succeeding, because your success means their success, and they have a chance to recoup the investment they made in you. That's how you do that. That was the advice that he gave, and I never forgot it.
Hey everyone, I have a humble request from the bottom of my heart. If you believe in independent journalism, please consider joining our membership for just $9 a month. We are not backed by corporate money, we don't have powerful funders behind us, and we are trying to do the kind of work mainstream media often refuses to do. Our goal is to reach at least 1,000 members who can stand with us and help us keep exposing corruption, asking tough questions, and fighting for the truth. If you can afford it, please join our membership today. Your support can help us make this country better for all of us. Just $9 a month may not feel like a lot to many people, but for independent journalism, it can make a huge difference. It helps us continue our work without fear, without pressure, and without depending on corporate funding. So once again, if you believe in what we do, please join our membership. We need people like you to stand with us. We need at least 1,000 supporters who truly care about truth, accountability, and the future of this country. If you can, please become a member today and help us continue this fight. And even if you cannot join right now, you can still support us by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing our work with others. Every like, every comment, every subscription, and every membership helps us move one step closer to our goal.
Stephen A. Smith did not need a single dramatic moment to get under Donald Trump's skin. He needed 3 straight days of live television, a losing basketball team, and one simple, devastating observation.
Politics as usual isn't Susie Lee's style. She'll take on anyone who's jacking up our costs, from politicians to drug and utility companies. And she works with anyone, Republicans and Democrats, to deliver results. She puts Nevada first every time.
Yo, it's Cinemas.
The President of the United States showed up to Game 3 of the NBA Finals and appeared to fall asleep in his seat. Smith said it plainly on First Take, in front of millions of viewers. The brother wasn't awake. What followed was a rapid 3-day escalation that saw the President of the United States publicly call one of the most recognizable sports commentators in America dumb as a rock on Truth Social. And Smith fire right back. on live national television the very next morning, challenging the sitting president to a public debate on IQ. This is not manufactured drama. It happened in real time over consecutive broadcasts, with both men going at each other using their actual names and actual platforms. What makes this particular feud worth walking through in full detail is the sheer speed of it. Most conflicts this White House has picked with public figures this year have unfolded across weeks or months. An initial comment, a delayed response, a slow building back and forth. This one compressed the entire arc into 72 hours. A criticism, a loss that appeared to validate it, a presidential insult, a live rebuttal, and a final escalation. All within 3 consecutive days, and all playing out in front of national television audiences rather than being confined to Truth Social posts, read only by the terminally online. Right now, in U.S. politics. Before we get into the Stephen A. Smith situation, here is where the country actually stands today. Iran and Oman are continuing talks around the Strait of Hormuz, with U.S. officials signaling cautious optimism about a potential deal, even as the diplomatic picture remains genuinely unsettled. Just days earlier, Iran flatly rejected Trump's claim that formal talks would resume on a specific timeline, adding to what the Washington Post described as a weekend of whiplash in the on-again, off-again negotiations, following Trump's decision to cancel a planned strike that reportedly would have been the largest American military action since World War II. Trump has said more concrete details on Iran will be announced within 48 hours, while Secretary of State Marco Rubio has argued Iran is now confronting a different kind of president in Trump. That is the real high-stakes story defining American foreign policy this week. A fragile, whiplash-inducing diplomatic process involving one of the most strategically important waterways on Earth. That kind of whiplash, public claims of imminent progress, met almost immediately by denials.
MAGA influencers to their right-wing echo chambers like Tim Pool and others like, another assassination attempt. We need the ballroom for Donald. He needs a ballroom. And it's the same system that we've seen before. Kash Patel, FBI, leaks the information to state regime media Fox. State regime media Fox is always the first to report it. Show a mugshot of the guy, and then the same day or the day after, Donald Trump talks about the need for the ballroom and how it's going to have a drone port and it's going to be a shield and it's going to protect him. Now, this is like the 6th time that Donald Trump has claimed that there's been an assassination attempt. I mean, you go back to Butler, Pennsylvania during the 2024 campaign. Donald Trump still has not released the medical records from Butler. There's also records that Trump continues to conceal about Butler, Pennsylvania. Even Donald Trump's former kind of top legal people over at one of those right-wing justice leagues did a FOIA request, and the FBI redacted everything, including conversations that purported to be between the shooter and even the local police or the FBI leading up to.
Yes, sir.
Can you hoop though?
Huh?
Can you hoop? Can you get on that coin ball out?
Hell yes.
Now let's really talk about it. What's his stats for tonight?
You're damn right. I tell you this much. With 2 jacked up knees, I could play better than you, bro. Come on now. Watch stuff now. I mean, that's number one. And yes, I can ball. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So why don't you play me? Play me.
This is a breaking news alert. The Midas Touch Network can officially call it. Abdul El Sayed will go on to win the Michigan Senate primary for the Democratic Party. Let me repeat this again. The Midas Touch Network can officially call Abdul El Sayed will go on to win the Michigan Senate primary, beating his opponent, Haley Stevens, who was given lots and lots of money, over $60 million by outside groups. Abdul El Sayed will go on to victory. NBC is calling it as well. Moments ago, Mallory McMorrow, who was one of the opponents in the Democratic primary. She dropped out early, leaving it as a two-person race between Abdul El-Sayed and Haley Stevens. Well, McMorrow just came out with a very strong endorsement of Abdul El-Sayed after we can officially make the call that he will go on to win the Michigan Senate primary, and he will go up against the MAGA extremist Mike Rogers. Mallory McMorrow just posted the following message.
Or contradictions from the other side of the table has become a recurring feature of how this administration communicates about the Iran negotiations, specifically making it genuinely difficult for outside observers to establish, on any given day, what the actual state of the diplomatic process actually is. It is worth holding that alongside the Stephen A. Smith story, because it highlights the same pattern that keeps surfacing across this entire administration. A president managing genuinely consequential, world-altering decisions in one moment, and spending consecutive days trading insults with a sports commentator over a basketball game in the next. Both things were happening during the exact same stretch of days in June, and neither one crowded out the other. Consider what that parallel actually reveals. A president managing an active, multi-country military conflict, weighing a strike historians would later describe as potentially the largest single American military action since the Second World War, still found the time and the inclination to spend 3 consecutive days publicly sparring with a basketball commentator over whether he had fallen asleep at a game. That is not evidence of a distracted presidency. Exactly, it is evidence of a presidency where personal grievance operates on its own independent track, running in parallel with matters of genuine international consequence rather than ever being crowded out by them. Timeline. The conflict began the week before Trump's planned attendance at Game 3 of the 2026 NBA Finals, when Stephen A. Smith used his radio show to voice direct opposition to the visit. "I don't want him there. It has nothing to do with politics, policy, or anything like that," Smith said, framing his objection at that stage as practical rather than partisan, a concern about disruption to a sporting event and a city, not an attack on Trump's politics. It is worth noting how carefully Smith drew that distinction at the outset, since it would matter later. He was not arguing that a president shouldn't attend sporting events as a matter of principle, and he was not framing his objection around any specific policy disagreement with Trump. His stated concern was narrower and more concrete. The security apparatus that accompanies a sitting president's public appearances, road closures, added screening, a materially altered atmosphere around the venue creates real disruption for the athletes competing and the fans attending, regardless of who occupies the office. That is a genuinely different category of criticism than the culture war and policy disputes that have defined most of this administration's other celebrity conflicts throughout the year.
The incident, although the Trump regime says that's not what those documents purport to show, but Trump's own former legal team who made the FOIA request were out there saying that. Then, in the past 2 months or so, maybe 3 months, what the Trump regime has claimed, there's been like 4 other assassination attempts, right? There was the one at the ballroom, at the White House. That was this, there was this one right here. Then they've been repeatedly claiming Iran tried to kill him, and they had to change the Qatari jet to the Qatari Air Force One to the new jet. And also, whenever Donald Trump is on the ropes, whenever he is in a situation where he's surrendering to Iran, when he has a really awful news cycle where Jeanine Pirro, for example, is dismissing the criminal charges against David Hearn because they lied and tried to prosecute him, that's when these things pop up. And again, I'm not saying that, this is not a serious matter. I don't want to downplay it. I'm just raising the red flags that this seems to be happening all of the time. And also, I'll just say this as well. McMorrow endorses Abdul El-Sayed. Congratulations, Abdul El-Sayed, on winning the Michigan Democratic primary to be our nominee for the United States Senate. Abdul has my full endorsement and support. This was a brutal primary. Believe me, I know. She was in it. And Trump and Mike Rogers are counting on us to stay divided. Let's prove them wrong by beating Mike Rogers and taking our country back. This was the moment that NBC made the call as well. Let's play it.
This is an NBC News special report. I'm Steve Kornacki. American voters in 5 states hit the polls on Tuesday, and I've got some major results to share with you, starting in the state of Michigan, where Abdul El-Sayed has won the Democratic primary for the United States Senate. He defeats Congresswoman Haley Stevens. This was a very close race here. You can see there are still a scattering of votes to be counted, but El-Sayed currently leading Stevens by 2 points out.
Teddy Scheifler posts. Here's the final New York Times numbers on Haley Stevens versus Abdul El-Sayed. 6 outside groups spent $62 million for Stevens, giving her a 9-to-1 spending advantage over Abdul. Half of that Stevens spend, $32 million, came from AIPAC's Super PAC. AIPAC Super PAC spent more than any single group has in a federal Democratic primary this cycle. Now,
he did not soften that position heading into the game itself. On Monday, June 8th, appearing on ESPN's First Take, Smith doubled down in far starker terms. This president has no business showing up in New York City. I am dead serious. It is selfish. It is narcissistic. He went further, publicly predicting that if the Knicks lost Game 3, he would hold Trump's attendance and the resulting disruption partially responsible for the outcome. That prediction deserves attention on its own terms, because Smith was, in effect, staking his own credibility on a specific, testable outcome. Before it happened, a genuinely risky move for a commentator whose professional reputation depends on being taken seriously. Had the Knicks won Game 3 comfortably, Smith's entire pregame argument would have collapsed under its own weight, handing Trump and his allies an easy, factually grounded rebuttal. Instead, the game played out in a way that at least superficially supported the case Smith had already made publicly, giving his subsequent criticism a foundation that was harder to dismiss as simple partisan reflex. It is also worth acknowledging the counter-argument that a fair accounting of this saga has to address directly. Correlation is not causation, and a single playoff loss cannot be definitively attributed to a president's attendance, rather than ordinary basketball variance, opposing team performance, or any number of other factors that decide a single game. Smith himself never claimed scientific certainty on that front. His argument was about the visible, tangible disruption to the arena and the team's preparation, not a precise causal claim that Trump's presence single-handedly cost the Knicks the game. That distinction between this created disruption and this caused the loss is one Smith maintained throughout, even as the broader media conversation sometimes flattened it into a simpler, more provocative framing. The Knicks did lose that night, falling 111-115 to the San Antonio Spurs. And Trump's attendance had, by multiple accounts, produced exactly the kind of disruption Smith had warned about: snarled traffic around Madison Square Garden, and a noticeably altered atmosphere around the arena, tied to the security requirements of a presidential visit. Trump, when asked about Smith's criticism by reporters after the game, did not engage with the substance of the disruption complaint at all. Instead, he dismissed Smith personally, saying the commentator lacked the high IQ necessary for a career in politics, a pointed jab clearly aimed at Smith's long-running, publicly discussed flirtation with a potential 2028 presidential run.
At 702 Plum Air, we believe it's our duty to deliver unbeatable plumbing and HVAC service. Family owned and operated, we provide fast, effective solutions for your family's home comfort needs. 702 Plum Air.
Unfortunately, the position of the presidency generally attracts a lot of bad people and a lot of psychologically ill people, a lot of